Welcome to the Authentic Fire podcast. This is going to be the first episode of a long journey together, guys. Welcome. Welcome. This is a new project for me. There's a lot of things going on inside my head that I want to bring out to the world, and this is the first. One of the first, actually. So, I wanted to start this podcast to give an opportunity to people to know about my message that is a lot related with authenticity and that there's in the past 10 years I've been exploring different areas and different projects and ideas and cultures and people and influencers and speakers and all of that. And to me, as I was moving on in my own journey, as I was you know moving to the next milestone and the next milestone and the next step of my evolutionary journey, I realized that I was searching for the ultimate pieces of change. This is the domino effect. Like you're always looking for the tiniest piece that once you take that piece down, all of the other pieces come down as a consequence. And I've always been very committed to looking for the best domino piece. There's a lot of pieces out there, but it's the same. Let me give you one example. People want to lose weight and they think that what they have to do is go to the gym. You see, they just see this as a binary equation. And I tried it. I tried to follow that path. I had to force myself every single time I had to go to the gym. And or people who want to lose weight, they think they have to start by doing something without doing the what is unrevealed, what is behind the scenes. And for me, this became a passion. This became a reason to study and to question myself and to integrate all of these things in my life. So I started to read books and attend to courses and get myself certified in coaching and NLP and all of those things. And suddenly I came to a point where I was like, I am not satisfied with this. I was having my first coaching clients and I was limited by myself. I was getting frustrated because I would get to end zones where I didn't know what to do and how to operate in the beginning. And I thought, well, I'm just applying what people taught me. And it wasn't enough. For me, it wasn't enough to have someone saying they want to lose weight. And my suggestion is to make a plan. You got to figure out what is before making the plan. If you're dealing with someone who is procrastinating, there's no amount of plan, there's no perfect plan that is going to save them from procrastination. So you either deal with what is underneath, or you cannot move. You can't do anything. And I started to realize that the real game operates in our unconscious mind. And the real game is to understand that when you're in your own flow, close to your own self, the most authentic version of yourself, your decisions are different. But they put you in a state of peace. Like, just imagine continuous peace. If you're able to create that, you're going to have an amazing life. And just notice, I didn't talk about money or success. I didn't talk about any of those things because it is not about creating money and success. The objective, like the most profound concept you need to look for, is not money, because money by itself is a creation of man, a tool to operate and to trade things. So in your depth as a human being, there is absolutely no worry about the concept of money by itself. There might be though, a different system of beliefs that lead you into having a struggle with money. So I realized that the more I connected with myself, my deepest self, the more I would grow and the more it would become easy. You know, when I was born, I realized people taught me, my parents and society in general. I think this happens with every single one of us. I was taught to, be careful with what you say. You cannot behave this way or that way. You have to be really careful because otherwise you're not going to be accepted. And that led me as a kid into finding a way to survive in a society where when you're a kid you want to belong somewhere, and I never felt that. So I endured a childhood where I didn't belong anywhere. I didn't feel I belonged to my family. I didn't feel I belonged to the to my environment, my colleagues at school, my schools, my city, the culture around me. Everything seemed absolutely wrong. I don't remember when this started, but if I had to bet, I would say I've had that feeling since I was born, honestly. And so I was very worried about what's going to happen if I act the way I really want to act. And this happens with a lot of different people the same way. If you remove all of the observations, your idea of what other people are going to think, of what other people are going to say, if you remove all of those things around your vision that is super clear, if you don't have that distracting you, what do you have? You have an authentic life. You have a life with a sense of freedom you cannot explain. You don't need to be free from society's norms. You need to be free from your internal limitations. So that's this is my message. If you ask me, how do you attract the best love for your life? Through authenticity. Just I know I installed Tinder probably 7 or 8 years ago on a trip I I went with a couple of friends to Bali, and it was a challenge. They challenged me, and I was like, okay, I'm gonna install this crap. But one thing I realized there was people are not authentic. So everyone is putting up a show to be liked, and if you have to put up a show for people to like you for what you're not, that means if you were being yourself, that would be just a different show. But it would be a show that was absolutely the reflection of who you are. You see? And I'm just talking about relationships. If we go into business, I have a curious story I had a few years ago. I was mentoring a couple of business owners, entrepreneurs, and some of them managed to get results, some of them didn't. They were applying the same principles, doing the exact same things, but for some of them things didn't click. And I started to pay attention. That thing just made me question everything. I started to think, is it the way I'm teaching? Is it the method? No, but if it was the method, then no one would be able to have success. But that was not what happened. What happened was half of the class didn't manage to achieve any result. And so it's like, what is underneath this? What is causing this? And I started to pay attention to the energy of each one of those people. The energy. And it blew my mind to realize that, of course, they're not going to have success. Some of these people were dead. You know what that means? It means to make a video and look like you're a fucking corpse, like a zombie speaking. No energy, no passion at all. And I mean, I'm not talking about like I'm kind of a fiery guy. There are people who have a different style, let's call it this way. But what I saw was It's not about speaking louder or faster or slower or dressing this way or that way or having this haircut or another one. It was the fact that some people, that the sense that I would get was they're dead, they're not alive. And so I started to realize that even in business, the world is changing. We are looking for authentic connections, authentic businesses, authentic brands, authentic, leaders. So how could I expect the method would work with people who are energetically dead? Of course they're not dead. It's just a term that I'm using to describe their energetic field. It was absolutely gray. So that was a second. Why were these people so disconnected from their message, from what they wanted to say? There was a lot of fear, there was a lot of doubt, and when you have fear and doubt in huge amounts, surrounding you everywhere, how do you look like? How do you sound like? How do you seem to be? Do you think you seem to be positive and charged up and someone who people want to be around? That was the first time I realized people don't really buy products, they buy energy. And it all depends on the energy that is there. It all depends on that. But we live in a world where people are easily fooled. They are easily, tricked, because they're so disconnected from themselves that they cannot know when they're watching a show that is true or when they're watching a show that is not true. But if the energy is dead, nothing goes on there. So it is not about tactics, it's about energy. So for me to connect with my best energy, I have to connect with my most authentic self. And authenticity is a word that, like, a lot of people say, I'm super authentic, I am who I am and the rest can fuck off. And even though people say this while grabbing a pint of beer, while holding it in their hands and just shouting it loud so that everybody listens to it, it's not what happens on their daily life. On their daily life, they're running away, they're hiding, and they're masking. So the masking process is something we learn from a very early stage of life, because we have to survive, we have to belong, and we don't know. As kids, our memories are wiped out. All you can rely is your energy. And if you have a lot of strong opposition, let's say a very shitty house environment, really shitty parents, really shitty environment, as I considered that I had when you're a kid, I mean, the perfect conditions for you to become a criminal are set. But then you have a choice. And you have to choose. Are you going to choose following a path that was decided for you? Or are you going to choose a path that you decide for yourself? In the end, people, there's always this discussion, but for me, it's really simple. You either decide what somebody else tells you, or you decide what you tell you that's going to happen. So it's either you deciding or the others deciding. There's no more like fluffy stuff around. And I really think, and I really believe that becoming authentic is making a pact with yourself to be judged for exactly who you are. So let's use an example. You have to make a pact, like an agreement to yourself. I am going to allow myself to be judged. Because when you remove the judgment, fear from the equation, you become free. You know that people are going to judge you. Some people are going to look at you and say, I do not like you. I don't know why. I don't know you, but I don't like you. Okay, that's fine. But what happens to a lot of people? They're afraid to be judged because they don't accept their difference. When you accept you what makes you unique, you have no fear for judgment because you don't rely on that judgment to know who you are. Now, some people are struggling to understand who they really are, and so they rely on external sources, which, by the way, sometimes are very toxic. So instead of moving towards the objective and the core self, they're moving away. Some people live their entire lives moving away from themselves. So there's a moment now, and I invite you to come more often to the podcast. I'm going to create some form of accepting people live when I'm going live on the podcast so that I can have a conversation with everyone. And to me, it's extremely important to activate this consciousness that you can play every single mask that you have. You can play the tough, the badass, the coward, the victim. You can play whatever mask you wanna play. You can dress it down all you want. But in the end, at the end of the day, I have a very strong vision for the world that is around you being able to step out of your house, doing whatever the fuck you want, and doing it while respecting society's norms but honoring who you are instead of worrying about what are people going to say and think and believe. And I'm not talking about trying to bend your will and your belief system, try to force it into other people. I'm not talking about that bullshit that we have a lot of that going on around now. I'm talking about live your own life, do not disturb other people with your bullshit. Leave your own shit, take ownership and accountability for your own mistakes, and start growing. You're not growing, you know, outwards. You're growing inwards. You're going back to the source where you came from. Your energetical source is what's waiting for you. And after you start, moving towards your energetical source, you start to realize a lot of things change in your life. It's people, it's your job, it's your business, it's the environment, it's the way you feel, it's the way you think. The biggest demons that are were created by your own head. And you replay them in your head lots of times, and that drains the energy out of you. I've had people in the past asking me, why would people care about being authentic when they can be rich? There's always this. I really like how so many of so many humans are so disconnected that their biggest concern is money. When I see people who can only speak about money, I don't see people who are rich. I don't see. Because, the richest people, monetarily speaking, that I've met in my life, they do not talk about money. I mean, it is part of their focus, obviously, but they don't speak about money as if it was missing. Usually, when I have these conversations, I ask people, that observation of I need money, I need a better job, I need to make more money. Does that come from a place of abundance, or does that come from a place of scarcity? Because you do have to make that choice, and up to until today, I have not had one single person not being able to tell me if it was coming from a scarcity place or an abundant place. And I just make the question, does that come from a scarcity place or does that come from an abundance place? And people still tell me, my business went right because I learned this and that and that. And it always remembers, it makes me remember people who go to the electronics store, and they're going to buy a new phone and they don't know shit about phones. They don't know about what's going on there. They just say, I want a new phone and I want a good one. So they go to the store, they ask for help, and they have this extremely experienced salesperson there that's going to tell them, this phone might actually change your life. It appeals to their emotional side. A lot of people make their most of the things that they buy are bought from an emotional stand. And I don't see people after buying speaking about how emotional that was. What they're going to tell you after buying a phone, they're going to tell you all of the specs of the phone, the specifics, the characteristics of the phone. They don't tell you that they bought the phone as an impulse. They bought the phone from an emotional connection with what they perceive they are going to leave in the future based on buying that phone. They're telling you it has this camera with X megapixels. It has this processor. It has 64 RAM memory, RAM memory. I've always I've always got stuck with RAM. So my point is, it is not about what people say. It's about you understanding that it is. People rarely make a purchase that is not emotional, but how they speak about it, it's as if it was the most rational thing they could have done. And you have to be able to separate, what is real and what is not. People say lots of things that are not true. And you have to be the one that is constantly separating what is true and what is not. You don't need to rely on people telling you the truth. You can rely on yourself by learning principles, connecting with yourself, because the more connected you are with yourself, the better your radar becomes. It becomes so sharp that when somebody says something off, you notice. You already realized something's not right there. It doesn't matter what they're telling you. It matters is listening to your own true self. And after you start doing this work, you start to become more authentic. I cured depression in my life through a path of authenticity. There were a lot of things that happened, but it was not a miraculous psychologist that did it. Actually, I when I was in that period, just a little bit of story. When I was in that period, I in the beginning I went to different psychologists, but I didn't see any result. I didn't. It was not the moment. I couldn't. I couldn't accept the idea of having an improvement on a life that I did not fucking want. I did not want it. So what I wanted a completely different life. I did not want an improvement. I didn't want anything close to that. I wanted the opposite. I wanted to let everything fall apart. That's why when I turned 17, I packed my shit. I grabbed a bus and I left. Literally, I left everything I had behind. I didn't care anymore because it was not an improvement that I was looking for. I wanted a new approach. I wanted a new life. I wanted a new way of operating, which I then developed along the next probably 10 years. I would say, well, 10 years is probably too much, but like probably 5, 6 years. And there were a lot of, points, a lot of events, a lot of moments where I allowed myself to explore the unknown from an authentic standpoint, connecting with people who are already doing it or instinctively connected with their most authentic self. And to me, it was People who know me from before and after, they can tell you, you did not know this guy before. You think he has always been like this? He was not. And it's like, I can attest to that. It's not that I changed my identity, but I became closer to my identity. I became less worried about people, agreeing with me or not. I became less worried about being liked or not. And I can tell you that is freedom. Whether I'm starting a podcast now, my videos, I've done, I've had a very, quite a large following on TikTok, speaking in Portuguese in the past. And I can tell you, I've had a lot of judgment that I had to endure because of my approach, because of the way I speak. I tend to trigger people because what I most humanly want to do is to connect people with themselves. But for some of them, that connection is a triggering moment. So I trigger people passively, and I had to learn about this shit because since I was a since a very early age, I was realizing that the way I spoke to people, the way I connected with them, I did not want shady, fake interactions. I wanted pure, honest, authentic connections with everyone. I tend to accept people for their very difference from me. But as you might probably agree with me, you don't live in a world where people accept you if you are too different from the norm, and you pay the price. That is exactly when you start working on yourself and you start building yourself up and inwards towards who you really are, and you remove yourself from that restriction that the world has on you. When you remove yourself, what do you get? You get freedom. You get to do whatever the fuck you want. Not worried about, are people going to judge me? Are they going to support me? Are they going to see me as a good dude, as a successful person? I can tell you, it, inside of me there's a huge amount of contradiction. I'm the same guy that leads people on sales training. I have a real estate company, and I'm the exact same guy that goes into the spiritual field and realm and gets lost and learns about tarot and all of the other things. I'm the exact same guy, and this messes with people's heads. The world is not ready for you to explore such opposites in life. The world is only prepared to listen to you talking as you're an engineer, so then everything you do might be somehow, pointed out in that direction. But what if you want to explore the other side too? And I'm not suggesting that you have to do it. I'm just giving you my example and my life experience, because I had to live it. I had to live with this curiosity. I had to live with this curiosity of exploring what is spiritual, but at the same time, with a from a very grounded stance. I needed to know, not it's not necessarily proof, but it's rather evidence. I need evidence. I need to know, yeah, right, right. Because I used to meet people from the spiritual kind of, area. And the way those people that I met were perceived by me was like, these guys are believing in fucking unicorns and directing their lives with absolutely no fucking responsibility. Which, by the way, still today, I believe the same thing about those people. So, in every single field, you have people who are responsible and conscious and honest, and you have people who are not. And I also thought that, maybe these people are from this field. They must be good hearted, and they must have a good intention. They might be good for me. Well, not everyone is good for me, and for you, you have to be able to distinguish them, to separate what is yours and what is not. Now, you ask me, how do I do that? You work on yourself. The more you know yourself, the more you understand that everything that is out there is a reflection of you, a direct reflection of you. It's either of who you are, who you want to be, who you do not want to be, but everything you pay attention around you is part of your existence. Because there is simultaneously, there are people who go by your life and you don't even see them, do you? Because they are not inside your world of existence. That is exactly why your brain subconsciously ignores them and cancels every information that comes from that, because you know that is not from this realm. So you're either working with people who are like you, who are not like you, and you don't like them, or you're not still you don't like them, but you wish you could be a little bit more like them. So this is quite a journey of an adventure and exploring the unknown. That once you start to say, all right, I allow myself to jump into the pool without knowing if the water is hot or cold. I allow myself. But what if it's cold? Then it is what it is. When I give myself permission, and the most magical, one of the most magical words was this: give yourself permission. Because everything you don't do or you do not allow yourself to do is because you did not give yourself permission. Now imagine that, giving yourself permission to create a business, giving yourself permission to create authentic relationships, giving yourself permission to exist authentically. Just imagine the effects that this can have in your entire life, because you're not a hostage of anyone or anything, and nothing can hold you against your will, because you know that ultimately your will is the only thing, is the only law. And that law means I either do this and operate like this so that I can be aligned and fully committed with my own sense of self, or I do the opposite and I pay the price. I pay the price of anxiety, depression, stress, not knowing how to make decisions, doubting myself, fearing to make a move. What is the end goal of that route? What is the end goal? I I always bring people to this point because I know there is no end goal. As you see, I am not advocating you have to operate and be like me. I'm just showing up to call you for something much bigger than myself. It is the importance of you to honor being as you are profoundly, not as you think you are today, not as you're used to seeing yourself, just beyond, on a very godly kind of version. We all had that opportunity. We all have an opportunity in this life to create that life experience that allows you to experience who the fuck you are. And who you are is not something that puts you in a state of stress permanently. Who you are puts you in a state of flow. Does that mean we're all going to operate the same way? No, that means we're all going to operate in a very different way. But what produces flow for me does not produce flow for you. To understand this is to actually respect my integrity. So I know that whenever I see people, whenever I see something that might be a good experience for me to, connect with myself, connect with my deepest emotions, I'm one of the first people to sign up and go. So I lead this way when I'm speaking and leading other people, because they see me very ready to do it, and they think that I was born this way. I was not born this way. But this is who I am supposed to be in my core. By transcending my limitations, I became ready to explore the unknown, which, by the way, every single fucking, numerology, astrology, kind of profile, even the profile tests, every single one of them portrays me as someone who is very risk averse. And I understood that from the beginning. I remember being very, very cautious about everything. And I still am. But I give myself permission to explore the world in realms that I have not been before. And yet gives me an amazing experience of life. So what is for me might not be for you. I'm not teaching you or leading you into becoming as authentic as I am being myself. I want to lead you becoming authentic as you fucking are. That is why I cannot give you a straight line to follow and you'll get there. You have to allow yourself and give yourself permission to question the system that you already have in place, to open up a new framework where you can operate and produce a life of joy. Thank you for being there. I'll talk to you soon.